Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. At the recently held Zhuhai Air Show, China flaunted its second fifth-generation stealth fighter jet called the J-35A that so far has largely remained shrouded in secrecy. Along with the Chengdu J-20 Dragon, China is the only other nation apart from the United States that can now boast of two fifth-generation stealth fighters. China's J-35 is being compared to the American F-35 stealth fighter that since the 2015, when it was officially inducted into the US Air Force, has been recognized as arguably the most advanced fighter jet in the world. Russia's Su-57 also made its international debut at the Chinese Air Show and stole the headlines. In modern warfare, air power is often the decisive factor, and fighter jets with stealth capabilities can run circles around the enemy. So who has the edge in the battle for air supremacy? Have the Russian and the Chinese stealth fighters now caught up with the American stealth fighters? Our next report gets you the details. Modern warfare is about air superiority. If you can dominate the skies, that is half the battle won, as air power can overwhelm and pulverize the defense infrastructure and the defense personnel stationed on the ground. In the Zhuhai Air Show in 2022, China had unveiled its first stealth fighter, the J-20. Nicknamed the Mighty Dragon, the Chengdu J-20 fighter is a twin-jet all-weather fighter aircraft that has been designed for air superiority missions with precision strike capabilities. And in this year's Zhuhai Air Show, China has created a buzz by unveiling its second stealth fighter aircraft. There is no universal definition that is agreed upon for a fifth-generation fighter jet. But typically, a fifth-generation fighter jet must include stealth, low probability of intercept radar, agile airframes, supercruise performance, advanced avionics, and the C3 capabilities of command, control, and communications. At this moment, only two countries in the world can boast of having two fifth-generation fighter jets. The United States has its F-22 Raptors and the F-35 fighters. The Chinese have the J-20 and the J-35 fighter jets, while Russia is the only other nation in the world to have an operational fifth-generation stealth aircraft, the Sukhoi Su-57. So how do these fifth-generation fighter jets fare against each other in a head-to-head contest? Let's start this comparison by looking at the J-20 spec sheet. With a wing area of 73 square meters, the J-20 fighter jet has a maximum takeoff weight of 37,000 kilograms. The J-20 can hit a maximum speed of Mach 2. It has a maximum range of 5,500 kilometers with two external fuel tanks. The fighter has a maximum weapons capacity of 11,000 kilograms. A whole host of different missiles can be deployed, including several types of air-to-air missiles of varying ranges. The J-20 is also equipped with what are known as anti-radiation missiles, through which the fighter jet can detect and destroy enemy radars, jammers, and radio devices. A single J-20 fighter jet is estimated to cost about $120 million. Many military analysts say the design and build of the J-20 borrows heavily from the F-22 Raptor, but a closer inspection shows that the J-20 may have both Russian and American DNA. But the J-20 has not been tested in combat yet, while the smaller J-35A, whose role would be to complement the J-20, will be used for both air superiority and surface strike missions. The United States is the original pioneer of the fifth-generation fighter jets. The F-35 fighter, which is a stealth multi-role combat aircraft, performs both air superiority and strike missions. Developed by Lockheed Martin, the F-35 is also capable of electronic warfare, intelligence gathering, surveillance and reconnaissance. What is interesting is that the F-35 was first used in combat by the Israelis over Beirut in Lebanon in 2018. And pretty much most NATO allies, besides other close allies of the United States like South Korea, Switzerland and even Singapore, have placed orders to acquire the F-35 fighter jets. The spec sheet of the F-35 fighter is as impressive as it gets. The F-35 fighter has a wing area of 43 square meters. The F-35 has a maximum takeoff weight of 31,750 kilograms. It can reach a top speed of 1.6 Mach, besides having a range of 2,800 kilometers. But it is in the armaments that it can carry that the F-35 outshines its competitors. The F-35 has 4 internal stations and 6 external stations on wings to carry a whole host of air-to-air, air-to-surface and anti-ship missiles. The fighter is also fitted with some of the best avionics on a combat aircraft. Each F-35 fighter jet is estimated to cost about $78 million. And what is more, the United States claims that the F-35 has even been combat tested, predominantly in the Middle Eastern war theatre. The Americans used the F-35 fighter jet in Afghanistan, and the Israelis have used the F-35 in carrying out attacks on the Palestinians and on Lebanon, and also in carrying out attacks on Syria and the Houthis in Yemen. The Russian Sukhoi Su-57 made its international debut this year. This multi-role fighter is capable of aerial combat as well as ground and maritime strikes. The Su-57 incorporates stealth, super maneuverability, super cruise integrated avionics and substantial internal payload capacity. The spec sheet of the Su-57 is pretty impressive as well. It has a wing area of 78.8 square meters, a maximum takeoff weight of 35,000 kilograms. The Su-57 can hit a max speed of Mach 2, and it has a maximum range of 4,500 kilograms with 2 outboard fuel tanks. A single Su-57 costs about $40 million. But it is in the variety of weapons that it can carry and fire. The Su-57 has 12 hard points, in which it can carry air-to-air, air-to-surface, anti-ship and anti-radiation missiles. Having the best weapons in the world creates a sort of deterrence, but every competitor developing the most dangerous types of weapons in the world is the definition of an arms race. So it is up to you to decide, do these top-notch fighter jets, drones and deadly missiles, have they made the world a safer place, or have they taken us one step closer to an impending doom? In the last 7 weeks, the state of Israel has resorted to a campaign of relentless bombardment of Lebanon. More than 3,300 Lebanese people have been killed, and over 14,400 Lebanese people have sustained some grievous injuries. More than 1.2 million Lebanese people have been driven out from their homes in southern Lebanon. Despite Israeli claims of being open to a ceasefire on the Lebanon frontier, analysts are of the opinion that there is really no truce on the horizon. Which brings us to the question, what really is Israel's endgame in Lebanon? Our next report gets you the details.
This is the moment an Israeli airstrike on Friday flattened an entire building in the Tayone neighborhood in the edge of Beirut's suburbs. Reportedly, the strike followed barely 50 minutes after an Israeli evacuation warning for the densely packed neighborhood. That includes residential apartment buildings, businesses, and a police center. Hundreds of such buildings have been leveled by Israeli airstrikes over the past 8 weeks, resulting in the destruction of thousands of housing units. Residents narrate an unprecedented unleashing of terror hitherto not witnessed.
Even the fearless now live in fear for what is happening to us. I mean, this is the first time, even after witnessing many wars in 1974, 1975 until 1980 and 1990. We witnessed wars all over Lebanon, but the strikes back then wouldn't reach underground and demolish the entire building. And now this is increasing. I mean, we are seeing things and we say, God willing, it won't get worse and worse. But I can say comfortably that everything has an end. From now to a month, from now to a week, from now to 2 or 3 months, no one knows, but it has an end.
According to the World Bank, 13 months of Israel-Hezbollah war has caused physical damages and economic losses worth $8.5 billion in Lebanon. Damages to physical infrastructure alone has been valued at $3.4 billion, while economic losses have been pegged at $5.1 billion. On Friday, Ali Larijani, a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, reiterated Tehran's commitment to support Hezbollah.
We support and stand by any decision made by the Lebanese resistance or the Lebanese government. We do not seek to destroy anything. We seek to resolve the issue and remain steadfast in our support for Lebanon in all circumstances. Hezbollah is a solid and rational movement, and the Lebanese are great people. Hezbollah leaders know how to act. As we have stated, we will support the resistance in all circumstances.
Hezbollah has so far remained steadfast and resisted Israel's onslaught. But how long will this resistance continue is anyone's guess. Analysts are of the opinion that Tel Aviv is feigning diplomacy while it prepares to expand an indefinite war in Lebanon. The strategy being employed by Tel Aviv in Lebanon is eerily similar to the one in Gaza, where it participated in ceasefire talks with Hamas for more than a year, while more than 43,000 people were killed in Gaza and nearly its entire 2.3 million population displaced. With the US President-elect Donald Trump scheduled to assume office in January, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is banking on his support to significantly intensify assault on Lebanon. The important question is, will Hezbollah surrender, or will it fight Israel for a prolonged period? And how crucial will be the role played by Donald Trump?
The Republic of Sudan, Africa's third largest nation by size, has been ravaged by war for the last 19 months. The all-out war between the Sudanese armed forces under the country's de facto leader, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the paramilitary RSF, led by al-Burhan's former deputy, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, erupted on the 15th of April last year. The RSF quickly took over most of the capital, as now spread into at least half the nation, though the military has regained control of some neighborhoods in Omdurman and Bahri in recent months. In this intense power struggle, thousands of people have been killed and countless others have faced unspeakable atrocities, including rape and sexual assault. Additionally, more than 11 million Sudanese people have been forced to flee from their homes since the conflict erupted. And now, according to a new study by researchers in Britain and Sudan, more than 61,000 people are estimated to be killed in the Khartoum state during the first 14 months of Sudan's war, a significantly higher death toll than what was previously estimated. Our next report gets you the details.
The Game of Thrones in Sudan between rivals RSF and the Sudanese military has precipitated one of the worst humanitarian nightmares in recent history. Both sides have been accused of committing abuses that may amount to war crimes, including attacking innocent civilians. In a new study by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine's Sudan Research Group, released on Wednesday, 62,000 people are estimated to have died in the Khartoum state alone. during the first 14 months of the ongoing war in Sudan. The figure is inclusive of an estimated 26,000 people who suffered violent deaths, a considerably higher estimate than the one given by the United Nations for the entire country. In addition to this, the study suggests that starvation and disease are increasingly becoming the leading causes of death reported across Sudan.
We found that right across the country, the main cause of death was disease and starvation. In specific conflict severe settings like Al Jazeera, Khartoum, Kordofan and Darfur, killings constituted the higher proportion of those deaths. So amongst the people who were killed, who died, many more in those four areas were killed as opposed to have died of disease and starvation. What is of particular note is that in Kordofan and Darfur, the majority of people were killed, even when comparing to Al Jazeera and Khartoum. What we found specifically in terms of how many people have died in Khartoum, we found that 62,000 people had died due to any cause. Among them, we estimate about 26,000 have been killed.
Interestingly, in Sudan, many deaths are not registered even during peacetime. With an escalation in fighting, many people were cut off from places that record deaths, such as hospitals, morgues, and cemeteries. Repeated disruptions to internet services and telecommunications exacerbated the situation, leaving millions unable to contact the outside world. Among the casualties of war was musician Khalid Sanhouri, whose friends and relatives were unable to get medical care for him after he fell ill due to the intensity of the fighting at the time.
My brother Khalid was sick and the war started, and this is a frontline area. There were no hospitals or pharmacies where we could get medicine, not even markets to buy food, which is essential to one's health. These were all factors which had an impact until his body was frail and he got sick.
Unbeknownst to them, worse was in store, as they couldn't even reach the nearest graveyard for a proper burial.
We had no way to go and bury him at the closest official graveyard because it was very difficult to access such graveyards. So we buried him here. The best way to honor a dead person is to bury him.
Since the eruption of war last year, hundreds of graves have popped up next to homes across Greater Khartoum. Reportedly, there are as many as 50 burials a day. Additionally, the United Nations has warned that the 19-month-long civil war in Sudan risks triggering the world's largest hunger crisis. About 25 million people, approximately half the country's population, are in need of all types of humanitarian assistance. For peace to prevail in Sudan, both the warring generals must come to the negotiating table, and external interference must immediately stop. Till that happens, the dire humanitarian situation will continue to worsen with each passing day, in a country which has experienced only brief democratic interludes.
Once perceived as a beacon of stability in South America, Ecuador has transformed into one of the world's most violent nations and a major drug trafficking hub in a short span of less than 5 years. Foreign drug cartels have been lured to its shores owing to its strategic position, large ports, lax security and endemic corruption. Despite the government declaring war against the narco gangs, the fight against the lucrative drug trade has proven so far to be a mammoth task. On the 12th of November, at least about 15 inmates were killed and 14 others were wounded when clashes between rival gangs broke out at a notoriously violent prison in the port city of Guayaquil. But the question is this: why has the Ecuadorian government failed in stopping the endemic gang violence inside the prisons in Ecuador? Our next report gets you the details.
Ecuador's biggest city and home to the country's biggest port Guayaquil has rapidly ascended to become the epicenter of Ecuador's crime problems, as narco gangs took advantage of its location to ship drugs abroad. The rivalry between these drug cartels, vying for control of drug routes, has largely played out in country's prisons, mainly in Guayaquil. At least 460 lives have been lost in drug gang riots in Ecuadorian prisons since 2021. In the early hours of Tuesday, the Ecuadorian Prison Service (SNAI) reported that grave incidents took place at El Litoral Penitentiary in the city of Guayaquil. Inmates were seen placing a body on the ground in the prison yard next to a long row of corpses wrapped in blankets. Later, the prison service claimed that security personnel had regained control and were conducting a search of the premises. An investigation was launched to determine the cause of the deadly fight. El Litoral is Ecuador's biggest jail with a population of 6,800 inmates. It houses members of some of Ecuador's most violent gangs, many of whom continue to run their criminal enterprises from behind bars. In September, the director of El Litoral, Maria Daniele Icaza, was shot dead by gunmen who opened fire on her car. The government of President Daniel Noboa claims that its crackdown on gangs has reduced the number of murders this year. Last month, at a military base in northern Guayaquil, Daniel Noboa handed over to the armed forces more than 100 rifles and pistols, seized from organized crime during various operations against drug trafficking.
The weapons we are handing over to you today were seized by our military in various operations. They were intended for criminal acts and used to threaten innocent lives, but now they will serve to protect them and be used against our true enemies, narco-terrorists and criminals. To the members of our armed forces, this arsenal will enable you to respond to the threats of those who seek to harm your integrity and that of the citizens. Use it with determination and with the support of the law and the Constitution for the progressive and legitimate use of force.
President Daniel Noboa had pledged to curb violence of narco gangs in his election campaign last year. The unenviable task, however, has proven to be a tough one so far. Will President Noboa succeed in his fight against the narco gangs? A 17 million strong nation, anxious and panic-stricken, awaits.
And with that's the wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.